Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So today we will directly enter in this section that how to deploy virtual machines in cloud environment. Okay, so we'll start with AWS or Amazon Web Services. Then we'll try to deploy some virtual machines in Google environment. Okay, in Google Cloud. So let me log into this system. So Amazon. Is it fine? Okay, is my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay, so this is the AWS portal. This is the AWS portal. Now, so I think you can remember the things. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. So everything is being published as a web service. Many of you are not, I think, familiar about web service, but the things which are being accessed over the internet, right now you may think of that this is an web service. So it is being published as a service which can be accessed from other application. Okay, but there are different types of web services which are being designed. We can use different types of API. So there are different protocols which are running in the background. So we can, following those protocols, we can develop these things. Okay. So we'll discuss web service in a different session. So here, let's try to understand that how these things are running. Okay. So as we have discussed that if we think of any data center, data center, I'm showing you some images. So this is a data center. Okay, so if we think of any data center like this one, so it's a segment of a data center. It's a very small part of the data center. So these are the servers which are installed. Now in each and every server, you can see this one item. So this is a blade server. Okay, so the capacity of one blade server is approximately, generally it's more than 256 GB of RAM and 512 core processor. So this is the capacity of one blade server. Now this server, which is looking like a wardrobe, so in every server, so this server is known as rack server. Okay, now in every rack server approximately 20 to 30 number of blade servers are installed. So you can understand that how much capacity is there in one rack server. Okay, so if this is the capacity of one server in a data center, these types of some thousands of servers are installed. So that is the total capacity of a data center, and the size of one data center is sometimes more than the outer boundary of the Eden Garden. Okay, that's the size of one data center. So these types of data centers are being managed by the cloud service provider. I think I have shown you that what's the average capacity of a data center. Okay, so in this data center, so this is a physical machine. When we are talking about this server, so this is being treated as a physical machine. In this physical machine, our virtual machines are being deployed. Okay, so from this management portal after login, when you are trying to launch a virtual machine, this virtual machine will be deployed in one of this physical machine. But the information about the location of the physical machine will not be given to you. Okay. So the things will be managed by the cloud service provider. So as we are logged into Amazon AWS, here they are managing these resources. Their algorithms are deciding that in which data center. So if you have chosen a data center like here, I have chosen. So by default, my selection is it's a US East. It's a Ohio. So US East 2. This is the data center ID. Okay, now you can see that how many data centers are there. So they have this number of data centers. Okay, so these are well known as a region. Okay, so we are selecting a region. Now within this region, multiple can be there. Now in one cluster, this type of physical machines are being managed. We have discussed cluster earlier. So if we have homogeneous physical machines, so combining the resources of homogeneous physical machines, we can form a cluster. Now these types of multiple clusters can be combined in one region. Okay, so as a whole, it is being treated as a data center. Now I have chosen this one US East 2. Now in this data center, if I want to run a virtual machine, then it will be deployed in some of these Blade servers. But in which Blade server it is being deployed, that information will not be revealed to the clients. Okay, it's the responsibility of the service provider that when you are deploying your application, you are running your application, the things will run there without any interruption. Okay, if there is any damage, like at any moment, if a physical server is being burned, it may happen at any time, though the possibility is some fraction, but obviously there is a possibility that at any time the system can fail. Okay, so at that time, how the data will be recovered, those things will be managed. Okay, there are some techniques, we have not discussed those things, that there are different techniques of checkpointing, different techniques of managing volumes, so that at any moment, if the system fails, we can recover the data to the previous checkpoint. Okay, so volumes and snapshots, using these things, we can manage it. Okay, now let's come to, yeah.
So that volumes and management, sir, in that damaged case, sir, how can we retrieve it?
There are some techniques, like in case of operating system, what do you do? If you are using Windows environment, if the system crashes at any moment after installation of a software, if the system crashes, how do you recover? Do you reinstall it immediately or do you try to recover it?
Sir, try to recover.
How do you recover?
So maybe bootable drive we make earlier.
Sir, system restored.
Yeah, so if we use system restore, during system restore, we are returning to some previous checkpoint. So after some interval, if you create some checkpoint that up to, like today, at this moment, I am deciding that my system is running fine. So I'm creating a snapshot of my system. Okay, so I'm creating a checkpoint right now. So later on, if tomorrow my system fails, I will try to recover my system up to today's checkpoint. Okay, so after creating this checkpoint, whatever I have done, the things will not be recovered, but up to today's job, when I have created this checkpoint, up to that we can recover. You generally use these things in Windows environment. In Linux environment, similarly, we can create some snapshot and checkpoint. So in cloud environment, when we are deploying a virtual machine in certain interval, automatically, if you mention it during configuration, automatically the service provider will manage these snapshots and the snapshots will be stored in volumes. Okay, it will take more memory obviously, but there are some technique by which this memory management can be optimized. We are not going to discuss many things together. Let's start with that. when we are deploying a virtual machine, how the virtual machines are deployed in a cloud environment. Okay, so in AWS, different types of services are being provided. Forget about all other services we are talking about right now. We are talking about EC2. Okay, so EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. So for Compute Cloud, it's EC2. Okay, so C2 is basically being used to represent Compute Cloud. And why it's elastic? We have discussed earlier, because the resources which are being configured during deployment, that resources can be scaled up or scaled down. So at runtime, if number of user or number of requests which are being processed in this virtual machine is increasing, so immediately multiple instances will be created. Alternatively, the resources of one instance will increase. Similarly, when number of users are decreasing or number of request processing is decreasing, so when resource utilization is less or lower, so during underutilized condition, the existing resources will be eliminated. Some of the existing resources will be eliminated so that cost can be optimized. Okay, we have discussed that in cloud environment, what happens that you will be billed according to the resource usage. So if at this moment I am using 4 GB RAM 4 core processor for 1 hour, and in next hour, if the resource utilization is 2 GB RAM and 2 core processor, obviously it will be half of the current billing. So at runtime, we can decide this resource provisioning. So automatically the things can be scaled. That's the purpose of cloud environment. So that's why we say pay as you go. So how much resource you are consuming, accordingly you have to pay. You don't need to pay huge resources. Okay, like in case of, as we have given some examples, that in case of say it's our university website is running in cloud environment. Okay, so on the date in which the result is being published, thousands of students are logged into that system, but for rest of the time, so there will be peak hours in 2 different sessions. So in odd semester for 3 to 4 days, there will be peak hour. In even semester for 3 to 4 days, when the result is being published, at that time there will be peak hour. So number of requests will increase rapidly at that moment. But number of user requests is very, very less for rest of the years. Okay, so we can't reserve the resources for whole year. We can reserve, but we have to pay that amount. But we don't need to pay that much of amount. So we can reduce this billing. So we need scalability. So when number of requests are increasing, automatically the resources will be increased. When number of requests are decreasing, automatically resources will be eliminated from the existing deployment. Okay, that's the advantage. Okay, so let's try that. When we are, I'm clicking on EC2. Okay, so Elastic Compute Cloud. So I'm trying to deploy one virtual machine. At this moment in my account, there is no virtual machine. I'm trying to launch a virtual machine. Okay, so let's launch an instance. Okay, so I'm going to click here, launch instance. So a virtual machine, what is virtual machine? You can understand from here. We have discussed few things earlier. So a virtual machine is basically, it looks like a physical machine, but it is not located at your address. It is running in data center, but you have full control over that machine. If I give you my laptop, or if I give you a server from our college, then this is a physical machine. But companies are not going to give you this type of physical machines at your address. Okay, just 1 minute, please. Sorry, 1 minute. हाँ sir, बोलूं. আচ্ছা, আমি সব শুরু করেছি, মানে তাড়াতাড়ি আসবো না? আমি তো ভেবেছিলাম 7টা, কিন্তু আগে বললে তাহলে আগে, স্যার যদি বলেন তাহলে আমি চলে আসছি। 6:30 কি আসবো না? 6:30। আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে দাদা, আমি আসছি। কিভাবে পড়া যায়? This is the real problem. Okay. Huh. So one virtual machine. Is there any student from second year right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So physical machine is the system which you can see. So these are the physical resources. But if we talk about cloud, these clouds are not running in cloud. The things are basically running in some physical machine. Obviously, there is a physical machine where the things are running. Okay, but you don't know at which address in which physical machine these things are running. From my account, I know that this is being deployed in US East Ohio region. Okay, but in that region, what's the actual address of the data center, where it is installed, the things are not known. Okay, sometimes some data centers are being installed just under the sea to reduce power consumption, because in a data center huge amount of energy is being consumed. Okay, and much more amount of energy is being consumed for just for cooling purpose. Okay, huge heat is being generated. If at any time, if you stand just behind a server in a rack server, okay, you will understand that how much heat is being generated by a server. So now thousands of servers are being installed in a location. So huge amount of heat will be generated. So we need some proper cooling system. And for this proper cooling system, much more energy is being consumed than the processing energy. Okay, that's the reality. That's why most of the data centers are being installed in north, uh, at North Pole. Most of the data centers, many of the data centers are being installed at Greenland. So these are the things which are being used, or techniques which are being used, but actually it affects the environment. Okay, so the things are actually the physical location and the physical system in which it is running. It's not known to us, but there is a physical machine where the virtual machine is running. Okay. Now here, when you are deploying a virtual machine, let us choose an operating system. So virtual machine will be similar to a physical machine. As in your machine, you are deploying virtualization environment like VMware or VirtualBox, this type of tools. It's again being used to install a virtualization layer on top of your physical layer, and in which you can deploy a virtual machine. Okay, so now we are going to deploy a VM in cloud environment. So here, let's choose one operating system image, because it's your choice. As a user, you will select that which type of operating system you are going to use. So if you select Windows, Linux, whatever you want, so you can deploy it. Okay, so there are some virtual machines which are free. We can use it, but there will be limited resource. Okay, but according to your choice, you can. So these things are marked. So this VM is free. So free tier is eligible for this VM. So if I deploy it for certain time, I can run it, but it will not be built. Okay. So similarly, this operating system images are there. Now we have to choose and we have to deploy. Okay. So let me choose one of this operating system. Okay, so I will prefer Amazon, this one, Amazon Linux. This one is built on CentOS operating system. It mimics with Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So I'm choosing this one. So I'm choosing it. So here you have an option for different types of architecture. So by default 64-bit x86 architecture is selected. I'm not changing it, just I'm choosing this one. Okay, so I have chosen only operating system image. So what is that? I have only chosen the what type of operating system it is. Okay, Now here you have to mention that what will be the instance type. Instance type means how much resources you are going to associate with this VM. In case of physical machine, like if you purchase a laptop or a desktop, you are going to purchase some resources based on your requirement. So if you say that I need a machine having 64 GB RAM, 64 core processor like this, so choose that type of instance. So here we have one virtual machine like C5AD. This one is basically having 64 core processor and 128 GB RAM. Okay. Here network speed is 20 gigabit. This is the network speed. So if you need such resources for your application, then you can choose this one. Okay. But if you choose this one, what will be the price? In every hour, how much amount you will be billed? So you can check the price list. Okay. I'm not going to choose this type of resources. I have done one blunder earlier. So that's why I'm choosing free tier at this moment. Okay. So I forgot to shut down the system. In the similar type of class, I have started a cluster having multiple VMs, but I forgot to shut down the whole system. After 3 days, I have shutted those down and total bill was more than 4,000 rupees. Okay, so I'm choosing this free tier. So here it's only one CPU, one virtual CPU. This virtual CPU is not exactly same as one CPU core. We'll discuss it later. Okay, so just at this moment, remember that one virtual CPU is not exactly equivalent with one core CPU in your physical machine. Okay, and this is 1 GB memory, and its network performance is low to moderate because the things are being shared. If you choose a virtual machine with lots of IO operations, then you have to choose some standard, like you will choose that it will be 1 Gbps or 5 Gbps, 10 Gbps, this type of network connection you can choose. Okay, so I'm choosing this family T2. It is
So most of the
VM.
connection in today's world is like IPv4. So like what's the, I know like IPv6 is coming, but most of the ISP are not providing that. So what's the use of it then?
No, in Amazon environment, in AWS, they are providing you a DNS. Okay, using that DNS, there is a special routing technique which has been developed by Amazon, by which these things are being managed. You will get an IP address. Let's check, but that those things will be managed internally by a special routing technique invented by AWS. Okay, because in today's world, IPv4 is not sufficient for
Yeah.
allocating to each and every virtual machine. Let's check. Okay, so here I am choosing this one. I'm not changing this selection, but we can change it. So I'm going to next configuration. After that, you have to configure the instance. Okay, here we have many things to configure, but just leave these things at this moment. So I'm not doing any changes. Here, most important thing is network security group, by which we can provide security, that who can get access to this VM and who will not be able to access to some or certain services. Those types of configuration can be done in this configuration panel. Okay, I'm just leaving it with the default configuration. Now I have to choose some memory. Okay, so here for this operating system, by default it is showing that it will take 8 GB memory. It will be secondary storage, and so this one is secondary storage. Okay, like your hard disk. So you can see that this is the mount location XVDA. So at this location it will be mounted. Okay, now I'm going to, okay, I don't need to add any tag.
Sir, one thing can you tell in the like previous page, what were the options in encrypted section? Encryption.
Do you want to encrypt anything? So if you want to encrypt anything, we can create some key, and using those key, we
Okay.
can encrypt the communication. Okay. So
Sir, is it providing a platform as a service?
please, one by one.
Sir, is the service type is platform as a service?
Yeah, this one is platform as a service.
Yeah,
I
okay.
will discuss some other types of service in upcoming sessions. Okay. Now I don't need to add any tag, but if you want to add any tag, you can add it. Okay. So I'm not going to configure these things. So this is the default security group. Here we are allowing only SSH protocol. So from outer world, we can access this virtual machine using SSH protocol and using TCP. Okay, TCP at port number 22. But if you want to, but this source IP address range is 0.0.0.0/0. It indicates that from any machine you can communicate. Okay, but if you want to restrict this, then you have to configure it by some custom IP. You can add some custom IP that only these machines can access this virtual machine. So we are not going to configure it in that way. Here, if you say all TCP, so that indicates that each and every port will be open by which you can access this virtual machine from outer world. Let me make it only SSH, which is running on port number 22. So I'm going to launch it. As I'm discussing lots of things, that's why it takes some time, but in these 5 panels, hardly we need 10 to 15 seconds to configure the things. Okay, so here I'm going to review and launch this operating system. So here finally this is being launched. Okay. During launch, it will ask to generate a key. I don't have any key previously created. So here I'm going to create a key pair. This is asymmetric key cryptography. Using this, I'm going to create a key pair. Okay, so this key pair is important because from my machine, I want to log into this system. So if I want to log into that virtual machine, I have to authenticate myself using this key pair. So this VM is being launched with a key pair. So this key will be used for authentication purpose. So say it's test. So I'm creating a key pair by this name test key. Download key pair. So this key pair will be downloaded. So
Sir,
one
I
key.
know RSA algorithm, but what is AD25561?
This is another algorithm. I will discuss the things later. Okay. And the best thing is you can talk to that group cryptography.
Yes, sir, I'm doing that only. Like I have read about Diffie-Hellman and RSA.
Okay. Okay, we'll discuss the things later on. I have to go to director's office within 6:30. Okay, so the things are, I have launched it. Now let's check the VM which is running. It's not started yet. It will take some time and it will start. Now look at this public IP and DNS. So public IP is being assigned here. But this IP, is it a IP which you can see in your local machine? No, this IP address is a different type of IP address. So this is being designed by Amazon. So they are providing internal routing mechanism by which you can communicate with their system. So the VM which we have launched right now, so this VM is accessible using this public DNS. Let me show you here. So using this public DNS, we can access it. Okay, so the machine is running. We can access this machine right now. Let's check that this is the details of this virtual machine. There are lots of information. we'll discuss later. So this virtual machine is running. Okay. Any doubt?
Sir, for
Still,
one,
yeah.
স্যার এই রিলেটেড না বাট কস্ট রিলেটেড একটা ডাউট ছিল, সেটা স্যার এক মাস যদি ধরুন পার ডে 10 আওয়ার্স করে চলে টোটাল ইনস্ট্যান্সটা, তো টোটাল ভার্চুয়াল মেশিনটা, তো টোটাল কত কস্ট করতে পারে?
You can directly check it that AWS EC2 price list. For what type of, this is the price list of on demand. As per your requirement, it's on demand service. So whenever you want to start it and stop it, accordingly the things will be billed. Okay. So this is the billing for 1 hour. Just you can multiply it with hours. Accordingly, it will be billed. But remember one thing, that if you need a service for a long time, then cloud is costly enough. If you need some resources and the resources doesn't require automatic scaling, then you should go for a physical server instead of cloud server. Because in cloud server, the cost will be more than 3 times. It will be more than 3 times of the actual cost. Okay. Okay, you can check this list for pricing.
Sir, you said AWS has its own private server. So like what does that mean? Like it has its own authoritative server?
AWS is?
You said like AWS has its own DNS.
Yeah.
So like what does it mean? Like it had its own authoritative DNS server?
Whenever you are requesting here, there are some RFCs which has been published. Okay, and most of the contribution for those RFCs are designed by this Amazon. Okay, now the things are standard. So if we want to request to this virtual machine, so how can I request? So when I'm writing this one, this is private IP. Let me show you the public IP. Launch time, host. This is the instances.
Sir, in the right side it was written.
Yeah. This is the public DNS. Okay, public IPv4 DNS. Okay, now if I open it, okay, so this is the public IP address. So in this IP address, actually there is a segment Amazon. The segment is aws.amazon.com. Okay, it will not run because 80 port is closed. It's not open. That's why it will not launch at this moment. Okay, so if we publish any website within this virtual machine, if we deploy on a website, then it will run there. Then we have to open port number 80. Okay, but when we have launched it, only port number 22 is open. Rest of the ports are closed. That's why we can't access it from web application. Yeah, I have to leave. হ্যালো, আমি আসছি। হ্যাঁ, আমি আসছি, এক্ষুনি আসছি। Okay. What can I do? I have to leave right now.